Hi. This segment of film is we're going to change a set of strings on an acoustic guitar. This again is different from the electric, so don't get confused. We'll have another film the same direction, except it will be working with an electric guitar. First of all, we'll start with the materials you're going to need. Naturally, you're going to need a set of strings. They'll come in packs, whatever, for you total beginners, so different kinds of strings. There will be other segments on the kind of string that you should use on your guitar and so forth. I happen to use Martin Marquis, which work pretty good on this particular guitar. I'm not going to spend much time in that direction in this film. Mainly, I want to get you across the knowledge that you'll need to properly restring your guitar. So we've got the strings here. We need a wire cutter. Very basic. You can get one of these for about $5-6 at the hardware store. It's nothing fancy. Electronic tuner or a pitch pipe, whatever. This pitch category is a little bit spooky. We'll also be making a film on tuning your guitar up to a wire 2. Changing strings means you have to put the strings on and then tune it back up, but it's too lengthy to do all in one film, so we're going to kind of separate it out. So for right now, you need your electronic tuner or a pitch pipe, either one, and a string winder. You may have seen these at the music store. They're not very much. You can pick one up for $4 or $5, something like that. It lasts forever. You might lose it, but you'll never break it. I think this one's, I don't know how old this one is. So we start out from scratch here. Now we're gonna give you a bird's eye view of this. I set the guitar up right in front of me, in between the two knees here, so I've got hands free. Now a lot of people that would teach this, or guitar players, or people in the string science categories, luthiers or whatever, would say you just take one string off at a time and then replace it. Well, their science and their idea is correct there. You should always keep the tension on the neck, because any distance of time that this neck does not have the tension on, it starts to move, and that's their whole idea. But very basically, to be honest with you, when I change a set of strings, I change them in about 6 minutes time. So the stress is right back on the neck almost immediately, within 5 to 8 minutes, something like that. So I go in kind of a mass production type situation. Just follow me one step at a time and we'll get going here. In between the two knees, and again, stressing this is an acoustic guitar, not an electric. Okay, so we start out, and as I said, in a mass production, we twist the gears, and get the up and down straight in your head, which one goes which way. And pretty soon you'll be doing them as quickly as I do. Again, in this early stage, changing strings is very much like playing the guitar. It looks easy when the instructor does it. However, when you get on it, boy, it's kind of tough. Now, notice how these strings have just popped off. That's because they've been installed properly. If you put them on wrong and tie them in knots, I've seen, we've all seen all kinds of horror stories out there where they tie them in knots and you're 20 minutes just with a wire cutter trying to get them off because they haven't been put on right. Another thing to caution you in this direction, these strings are metal, and a lot of people, when they put on strings, don't clip the ends off, and they become just like needles. They can poke you if the string is tarnished, or if it's dirty, whatever. If you draw blood, well, we're looking at a tetanus shot and whatever, so we don't need any of that stuff, of course. So as we've installed these properly, they come off very easily. And as you notice, I'm not really working at this. Okay, now we've got the head in. Now some of these things you'll want to gear in close with the camera. I lost a bridge pin here somewhere. Here it is on the floor. Some of these fall out a little bit easier than others. Now we go to the bridge end, and these bridge pins they come out really quite easily. Now yours possibly won't come out that easily. I just pull up on these. That's because I've done the luthier end to the wire on this guitar. Naturally, Martin is helping me by designing a pretty good guitar also, those of you familiar with guitar manufacturers. Now, in this, I might caution you as we're doing this here. A lot of people have trouble getting these, what we call bridge pins, out of the bridge. And so what they do is they'll take a pliers or something and they'll go at it like this. Well, what happens usually is you're going to chew up the end of your bridge pin, which is basically defacing your guitar and whatever. Not to count if you drop this into the face of your guitar, which is the worst thing that can happen. So what we do is I just take my left hand. A lot of times I'll take anything flat. I'll just use the pitch pipe like it's flat and it's hard. These bridge pins sometimes tend to be a little bit sharp on the end, and this is the part that's protruding down through the face of your guitar. So what we suggest you do is we just take the pitch pipe like so and reach underneath it and push up. In that way you'll get them loose, and you can push and pull at the same time. You pull up while you're pushing on the bottom, and they will come loose. Now, again, as I said, I've got mine set up down to the wire, and as you notice, they came out very easily. Some of your lesser expensive guitars won't be that way. Now, at this point then, we pull the beaded ends out, and we've got our whole set off already. Notice how fast that goes. It's not hard at all. You can understand how we'd do this in 6 minutes' time. I just wind these up so they'll fit in the round file, whatever, and I'll toss them over here for now. Now that we've got the strings off, we have to watch out because this saddle, we call it a saddle. Now this is the bridge and this is the saddle. This saddle can come out of here very easily. This one fits really close, and I can turn it upside down and it's not going to fall out. But a lot of guitars aren't as precision as this one is. And as luthiers, if we build this saddle in really tight, the transfer of vibration is really good, which is exactly what we want. But a lot of times, as I mentioned, in lesser expensive guitars, this saddle, as we call it, may fall out. And if it does, naturally you have to put it back in. The fallacy involved in this situation is there's a high side and a low side, meaning to say a bass and a treble side. If you turn this around and get this turned around, you're going to screw everything up. Now this will fit in here like so, but you're going to have string buzz and all kinds of things happen if you do this. So you'll see now. See if you can link in here with the camera. You'll see a high end and a low end, and there's not a whole lot of difference, but there is a difference. And you always want the high side on the bass end, the low side on the treble end, so don't get that confused. So I'm going to put this back in here at this point. Now this one fits really, I have to just snug it in there. That's what, it doesn't move around or anything. This is real precision. This piece, this is really the heart of your instrument here. Your octave is figured out at this point, your volume, your tone. There are so many things that are decided in this one little piece here. If I had to name one piece on the guitar that's the most important, it would be your saddle, because it's a transfer of the vibration into the face of the guitar, which renders you, your overall sound that you may get. It has to do with tuning techniques, not tuning techniques, but tuning and everything. If this isn't set right, you won't get your guitar in tune. You can pick up buzz and rattle and all sorts of things. Volume loss, all kinds of bad situations. So make sure this is in here properly. Now, we've got the strings off. Now we're ready to reverse this situation. We've got our strings out in front of us here. Now, each one of these packets will tell you which strings are in there. Now, you should be replacing with the string that fits your guitar, and as I mentioned earlier, I'll go over different kinds of strings in future films to educate you well in that direction. Let's say just right off the top here that we've got the proper string. Now we take the string out of the package, and these come 2 different strings now at a time. Some have separate packages for each one. There's a lot of variables out there that you have to work with. Now, as you'll notice with your guitar string, if you can come in here close again, these strings have 2 different ends, one with a beaded end where the string is wound around a bead, and that'll be the bridge end, and then the empty end, which is up on the tuning gear category. So we'll take the beaded ends. Now this is string number 1 and 4. If you ever get your strings out of the box and you get them all separated and you say, oh gee, which one goes where? I don't know which one is which. That's what we're showing this here for you. It's very basic. The thinnest string goes on the treble or high end. The thickest string goes on the bass end. So if you look at them really closely, a couple of these strings look a lot alike, but they're not alike. The thinnest one is on the top, the thickest one on the bottom, and they are gradually graduated to that situation. So we're going to take the bridge pins, get them over here so we can work with them. Now, you might pan in close so you can see one of these bridge pins close on here. If you look closely, this bridge pin has a little slit in it. That's where the string goes. Now I'll turn it around here so you can see it really well and hold it still for the camera. Okay, now this is the top and that's the bottom. Okay, now this is the slit that I was talking about there. And the string should fit into that slit. If it doesn't, your bridge pin and the string are probably not going to fit in the bridge pin hole. So make sure that string does, that little slit is facing, the direction that the string goes. In this case, it would be facing this direction. So this little slit in the bridge pin. Now, if you pan in close on here, I'll try to get the camera in close so you can see exactly what happens here. The bridge pin goes in. Can you see that on the camera now? Okay. The bridge pin goes in, and we put it in quite a ways. Then we put the little slit right where the string is, and we shove that in. Now, we just have to shove it in with our thumb. We don't have to shove this all that hard. Then we pull up and yank on it a little bit, not real hard. That's so the bead of the string goes flush up against the bottom side of the top of your guitar, and so there's no slack in it. Pull it way out. Okay, that takes care of the first one. Okay, now this other string is string number 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that goes in exactly the same way, making sure the string fits into the little slit in the bridge pin. Okay, shove it in with our thumb. Now again, I change strings probably twice a week, maybe even more. I'll go for a set of strings. A lot of you may ask at this point, when do I know when to change my strings? Well, again, it can be compared very much to a tire on a car. When do we change the tires? Well, when we look at them and they're all bald and they're going flat on us and worn out of shape and whatever. A string, it's gone down when, number one, you're having trouble tuning it. That's a good sign. The color of a string will be dark. As I started out to say, you're going to find that in advanced stages, you like a real edge off of a new set of strings. If I'm going to be in the recording studio putting down a master track of whatever, and I want to go for the gusto, I like the first hour and a half off of a set of strings. And a lot of people think, oh, that's overkill. If you listen close, there's a world of difference in a brand new set of strings. They're brighter, they tune better, they're an exciting sound, they're crisp and clean, and this makes for a much more exciting performance. I think most of my students change strings probably about once every 2 months, something like that. But I wouldn't really suggest any longer than that. Women tend to go a lot longer not changing strings because their hands don't perspire as much. Some guys go through a set of strings in 1 week. Naturally, my edge with an hour and a half, that's in a professional recording studio, and as I said, you're going for an edge. I, on an average, will change strings probably about twice a week, something like that. But I'm working with them constantly. I'll be teaching a lot of students or recording or doing something that I want that edge. And naturally, the better your ear gets, the more pickier you're going to be. For you 20-year players, you can relate to that right away. That nice, clean string is real important. Okay, continuing on here. Okay, and if you're thinking that this string change is only for beginners, think again. You'd be surprised how many guitar players I've run into that I go through this technique and they say, well, I've changed strings forever, but I've never done that before. We'll get into some things here, as you'll see when we put these strings back on. Okay, this is the 2nd and the 5th string, not to confuse those two, and we're going to gear those in the same way, make sure the string is in the slit. Now again, I might show you. I'll look real close at these strings, these 2 strings that I've got in my hand now. Well, look at the 2 main ones here. If you look closely, if you just glance, they look like they'd be the same thickness, but these 2 top strings are not the same thickness. One's thinner than the other, so don't get those confused. If you do get them confused, you could break them when you put them on the string. Each string is made to take so much tension, and if you put more tension on it than it's designed for, then you've got a problem, of course. Okay, so don't get your strings mixed up. Okay, this other string is going to be string number 5 now. Okay, that's the way Martin puts theirs. There's 2 strings to a package. Naturally, they're conserving the packages and less pollution and whatever, which I have to apply. Okay, the 2 last strings. This will be the 3rd string and the 6th string. Again, you can tell the difference between these pretty easily, so I won't take a lot of time there. I'm going more of a mass production here. Put that string in where it belongs. Make sure the string is in the slit of the bridge pin again. Okay. Okay, shove them in with your thumb. Never any harder than that. Might give you a quick sermon in that direction too. I see people, they think, well, the bridge pin holds all the tension of the string, all that pressure. Simply not true. All the bridge pin does is it shoves the string into a little slit underneath your guitar that basically the string is kind of worn a little, niche in there. And the face of the guitar holds the pressure. The bridge pin does not. The bridge pin only holds the string in place. So you really only have to shove these in with your thumb. And you say, well, what will happen if I shove that in really tight so it won't come out? You'll split your bridge in time. What happens is, in between, when you take the bridge pins out, you'll see a hairline crack. And then you've got a problem, because once you started that crack, the pull of those strings will pull that crack further and further. And pretty soon you have a $200–300 job of replacing your bridge. So think again if you're shoving those in really tight. Not only does it give you a nightmare for taking them out when you change strings next time, but you're messing up your guitar at the same time. So as you notice, we go in kind of a mass production. We work on the head end, then we work down here. Now we're going to go back to the head end. Now we're going to place the guitar down like so, and just let the string flop out like so. Okay, and we're going to start with the bottom string and work over. It's not really necessary to go in a particular order that way, but it's a little bit more organized and so forth. Notice I'm setting this on my left knee here, so that guitar is just set up so I have both hands free to work. Okay, now I'll start with the bottom string, and this is just like a giant needle and thread, and we're going to gear this around like so. Okay, and pull the string straight up. Now we're going to take all the slack out of it for right now. And make sure if there's no slack underneath the bridge. We already did that if we did the other portion properly by pulling that little bead up tight underneath the face of the guitar. Okay, now we've taken up all the slack. Now we can measure. Now I'm going to pull back on this just a little bit and allow just enough space to go around about once. Okay, now the winding, as you're seeing here, if you're focusing in on this, the winding comes off to the top and to the inside, not the outside. And at this point we wind. Now here's where a winder comes in really handy. This speeds things up. We just put the winder on and we can crank it up. Now if you look really closely, now I want you to get in here close with the camera. Notice how the winding is coming off on top. And if you look really closely, right up here, as I wind, I don't go down here. I don't want that. I want to go off the top. If you look really closely on this with the camera, you can see the difference. Now the idea is to get that string to lock onto the gear. Now the reason this is so important is if we get the string to really lock on the gear properly, then the string isn't going to slide and go out of tune for us. That's the idea here. I've seen a lot of artists work on stage and they're saying, well, give me 10 minutes while I tune up my guitar. Well, to me, that's always been pretty much amateur, because they didn't come to hear you tune, they come to hear you play the music that you're going to play. So don't get caught up in this. Now, the tuning gear will have a shaft, and that's this little portion that we wind around here. Now that shaft, if you look at it really close on your better guitars, is shaped like an hourglass. It's curved like this, not straight up and down. The real cheapy guitars have them straight up and down. It's a very poor patent, because with this hourglass shape, you're going to stack that string and wind it on, and then when we tighten it down, by tightening it down, you're going to push this stack together, and it's going to grip, the string's going to literally grip on the gear and itself. And again, let me spell this out. This means that your string is not going to slide on your guitar later on. And if it doesn't slide, it's going to go in tune and it's going to stay in tune. So don't defeat this purpose. Again, when I see people tie the string in knots, well, Amateurville, here we come. I mean, that's where it's at. Okay, I'm going to repeat the same procedure on the next. Put the string in here. See where we're going here. The reflection is always hard. Okay, put one winding on there. Okay, now this one, I'm going to show you the pointed stance. Very basically, the hind fingers take up the tension, slacken the string so it stays tight, and we wind. Now again, we can use the winder, here it is, and wind up the wrist. But in the pointed stance now, watch real close on this. I can aim this down or I can aim it up like that. So the pointer will determine the angle that you get so the winding comes off the top of the gear. That's imperative that you do it that way. We've got other reasons for doing that, which I'll explain here in a minute. But while I've got this pointed stance, notice the hind fingers, that's the secret to all this. The hind fingers are holding the string slack. The pointer is determining whether that string winds up or down. So we want it to wind up. Now, getting past that, I want to explain this angle to you. If you look really closely, the neck of the guitar goes straight until here, and then it angles off. You should see that pretty easily from the camera. Now, this is for a reason. This is so the string stays in the slit in the nut. This portion here is called the nut. And in this angle then, literally this angle, the string stays in the nut and doesn't slide around. But by stacking this just a little bit higher, we reduce the angle. And in reducing the angle, the string will slide more readily across the tuning gear, getting a better response when you tune. A lot of times, if we're just a little bit out of tune, we'll turn the gear just a little bit and nothing will happen. We'll turn it a little bit and nothing will happen again. The third time, it goes all the way. What that's called is string hang-up, and for a good reason. The string is just hanging up on the nut portion. It doesn't slide as easily as it could. If we've got too much angle, pulling too much pressure, it won't damage the guitar, but your strings aren't going to slide as readily on there, and you're not going to get as good a response out of that tuning gear. Believe me, I've put strings on more than thousands of times in my lifetime, and it works every time. You get these sciences going for you, and it's the closest thing to magic that I know of. In this, the winding comes off on top. Now, again, we don't put many windings on these bottom strings because very basically they're a very thick string and they'll build up very quickly. The top strings are a different story, as you'll see when we get there. Okay, so by the way, on this, when I build a nut too, I build it very narrow at the top, so there's not a lot of space for that string to grip onto. It's a better designed nut. The kind of material that I use is Corian. I've used Corian for about 15, maybe 18 years now. I noticed Martin has just gone to it here in the last probably 2 or 3 years. Their big D41s and D45s are coming out with Corian. They don't have to use ivory anymore. Animals, ivory being hard to get and so forth. Don't need them shooting elephants and whatever. Okay, so in this direction then, we'll go to the next string. Continuing on here. Let's see where we're going here. Find that slit again. Okay, now this one we're going to wind on a couple times. Okay, and then go into our pointed stance. Then finish up pointing. Now this is where the winder comes in handy because we have more slack this time. Sometimes it'll vary. Notice how quick the winder is. Again, this is easier said than done. You'll need some practice on it to learn how to tune your guitar, string your guitar right. Just like anything else. Okay. Oh, hard to see that end sometimes. Okay, now this time we're going to allow a lot of slack. Okay, this is the third string. If you're ever going to break a string, this is it. A lot of string manufacturers give you 2 top strings. Well, that's for when you pluck too hard, and to me that's Amateurville anyhow. but the one that usually breaks is the third one. Through the years I found it's always the third string. It's one of your thinnest strings because it does have a winding on it. If you'll notice, if you look really closely on this bottom string that I've got here, it has a wound portion, which is right here, and then the other, the core of the string, which is out here. So if you look really closely, this string has the same situation. And so even with the winding on it, it's still thin. So that means the core, which is the part that takes all the tension, is a very thin string, and you can break it very easily. Remember, it's the third string that you have to be careful with, not to break it. We'll allow quite a bit of slack here. Okay, now this is a little bit tricky. We put this pointer here and pull it around. Now you're going to have to get a close-up on this. And for you people that haven't changed strings like this before, this is the part that's the hardest. It's going to take you some practice to do this. So I want the camera in really closely, and you'll probably have to review this quite a few times. Just run the film back as many times just to watch what I'm doing here exactly and get a picture of this in your mind. Okay, now this pointer goes around here and guides it around there. We've got about 2 or 3 windings on by the time we... Now I always wind by hand on this side as opposed to using the winder. On the electrics, I think the winder comes in a little bit more handy. If you're stringing a nylon guitar, it comes in very handy because you have to wind on those forever. Changing strings on a nylon string guitar is much, much harder. I wanted to mention that in this segment too. Nylon strings stretch a lot more, and you're going to be turning and turning and turning. So a winder with, a nylon string or a classical guitar is a must, almost. Steel string, you don't get as much variation. Okay, now we're doing our second string in here now. Okay, now we're going to save a lot of slack on these because this is a real thin string, and without a winding on, this is only the core. Now, the 2 top strings are only the core of the string, and they tend to slip much easier. So we need more windings, and we have more space for a winding because naturally it's a thinner string. Okay, so we start out with a lot of slack like this. Again, this is exaggerating what I started out. I think you can see my finger underneath here. Now again, watch this real close. I put the pointer there to guide it around, then pull it around like this. Now we go into the pointed stance, as I mentioned before. And in this pointed stance, the back fingers do the magic part. Let's take up the slack in the string as we wind. Now from here on in, I'm going to keep this slack tight. That's the secret. Otherwise, the string is going to spring off of here, which we don't want to happen. So we pull it over, keeping all the slack tight. Then we go into this stance again with our little finger. Now I'm going to move down like this so you can see it. So as the slack gets smaller, I can't lift my hand up that far. Okay, pull it around again. And as I do this winding, I'm being cautious that this slack does not go off here, because the minute it does, this string is going to spring up and it's going to spring off. And then you got little windings on it, then it's really going to be hard. So try to do it right the first time. It's tough. Okay, we're into the same situation. I put the pointer there, and I'm stacking this very neatly. When I get done, I'm going to have a real close-up on this so you can see how neatly it's stacked. And you say, oh, well, he's just picky and he's a perfectionist, which I am. I mean, you have to be a musician in a certain way. But the point I'm getting at here is this stack is really neat. Now see if you can get a shot on that. Some light on there. Can you see the stack really neat and smooth? Now, if you have the stack really neat, it's going to lock on there properly. It's also going to give you a little more height, reducing this angle, so your string will slide more readily across the nut portion, which again is right here. Okay, so we're going to finish up manually since we can't get another winding on there the other way. And then into the pointed stance again, and guiding it into the slot on the nut. Okay, continuing on here. Okay, we get the eye around so we can work with it here. Again, with this reflection of light, it's really hard to see. Okay. Lots of slack now. Same situation. Pointer guiding it around. Taking up the slack. Pulling over again. Continuing on to do this. Now I do it very quickly. You can do it quickly when you get a beat on it and control it. But at first you're going to have to go very slow. We've used all the slack up now. I don't think I'm going to make it again. If I try, I'm probably going to lose it, and it's going to spring off, and again, then I have a problem. So finish up winding it manually. Don't defeat the design of the tuning gear shaft, which is the hourglass shape again, as I explained. Don't defeat that by putting it on there any old way. That's not the way to do it. The last thing I want to be thinking about when I perform is my tune. When I perform, I think about the song and I think about the feeling. If I would perform tomorrow or tonight or whatever, the most important ingredient that I can put in my playing is the feeling that this is what makes it come alive. And if my concentration is on which string is out of tune, again, you're blowing your whole performance there. This is the reason why I got into the string science in the first place. As a musician, the music stores and so forth were not giving me what I needed to become really professional. I needed an instrument that I could depend on, an instrument that was in tune, an instrument that sounded good. And they just were not. They were professional at selling it to me. They knew all the makes and models and so forth. But the problem existed when they didn't know any of the string science that really affects the musician. The last place you want to be affected is in a performance when you're in front of 3,000 people. You want to have your act together literally by that point. And a good share of this is, having a proper string change and so forth. So we get in that direction. Okay, now we're going to start to finish up here. I'm going to take the two top ones, and like any wire, if we twist them, they just break off. Notice that wasn't hard to break that top one. And that third one, if you bend it about the third time, you try and put it on without success, the third time you break it. And a lot of packs, you'll have to go back and replace the whole pack as opposed to one string. You can get it, but the music stores don't like to sell them to you in one. They'd rather sell you a pack. So then you set up yourself another bum scenario. Okay, so this one I'm going to bend this one off too. And as you notice, we bend these off. Now I couldn't poke myself on it there if I wanted. If you can, if you watch me do that, if that was pointed, I could never do that. And if you look at these strings, this is just like a needle on the end here. And if I see people all the time, they cut them off and they leave about that much string on there. It's deadly. If you run into that, it's going to smart. It won't be the end of the world, but let me tell you, it's not a fun injury. So keep that in mind. Clip these very short. That's what I use the wire cutter for. Now, I don't do this on the bottom wound strings because the winding will tend to grip on still. And so I take the edge here, fit it as closely as I can. As you'll see, I get it right in close. I don't want out here. I want way in close. And get a bead on it and clip it real short. Okay. A lot of times I like to get the winding out so I can get a hold of the string too. See that? Real short. Not necessarily going in an order here at this point. Again, I want to clip it as short as possible. Okay, last but not least here. Really close. By the way, don't wait until after you got your tune to clip off the strings. If you do, you're going to throw your whole tune all over again, so don't waste your time. Notice I'm doing all this in a particular order. Now, again, I didn't get me a pick here, but I usually tune with a pick because I can hear the pitch better. It's kind of like if you paint the wall, you like a real bright light on the wall so it shows any variations. Then when you put the normal light on it, it looks perfect. That's what a pick does to a string. It makes it real bright. Now we check with our pitch pipe. Now, how did I land right on that? You notice? I memorized it. And you say, how did you do that? After you do it about 1,000 times, it's not that hard. But you can do it every time. I don't need a pitch pipe anymore. I know exactly, if I know where this is, I know where the second one is. Have you ever walked down the stairs in the dark? You need a handrail and the first two steps. Once you've measured with your mind, you can walk down in the dark because the other steps are going to be the same height. This is the same situation here. It's not all that hard. But it's just a matter of being exposed to a lot of this. I'm not blessed with magic. I'm no genius. But the point is, I've been at it a long time. And you can do the same thing here. Now, I tuned each one of those that way. The only problem is, what people don't realize is when I put the stress on this neck, the neck moves forward. And if I tune that top string exactly right, and then put the other strings on, the neck will move forward and it will drop the top one in pitch. You don't believe me? It's flat because the neck moved forward, dropping this one flat as I tuned up the other strings. So there's a lot of movement there that you don't realize. Okay, so we're going to bring that up to par again. Okay, bring the others up to snuff. By the way, that tuning situation, being able to memorize that thing. When I'm tired at night, if I'm really tired, my senses are dulled. Can't do it as well. I'll be off. That's the difference. As you become a good musician, you're going to find that it's usually real sensitive people that are musicians, and they notice the little things that most people don't notice. A perfectionist always has an advantage being in music. I've seen other people, though, they weren't perfectionists at all, and they still became good musicians, so don't let that stop you. Now, you say, okay, he's done. No, we're not done yet. We have to stretch and bend the string. Okay? You bought a pair of jeans, and you just got them home, and you wash them and they shrink. That's because they haven't been shrunk right at the factory. Now, needless to say, nowadays you buy a pair of jeans and they're pre-shrunk. We pre-stretch the string so it doesn't stretch out later. Now again, you tug on it, you don't yank. If you overdo this, not only can you break the string, you can do damage to your bridge area and also your saddle. So be cautious on it. I go over each string and tug on it as you see me doing. Be real careful on this third string. Remember, that's the one that breaks the easiest. To give you an idea how precision I get this whole thing, and this goes for your 20, 25-year players too. When I perform, to give you an idea what kind of an edge I get, I'll tune this guitar up. And when I play, I'll play 3 to 4 45-minute shows. And that's just guitar solos all the way through. And I won't tune up until the next day. And by the way, I won't be out of tune. That's the kind of guitar player's utopia that you can get off of this. And a lot of people that don't believe me, you know, they watch me perform. And it can be done. I do it every time. It takes that tuning situation right out of the picture. My mind is clear for the performance. I know my machine is going to perform for me. Guitars can be very much like a car. You get in your car and hit the starter and so forth. You expect it to go. What kind of a guitar is it? And you hit it and nothing happens. Bummer. If that car was designed right, it would get you from point A to point B. You don't have to worry about it. You can think about what you're doing that day as opposed to worrying about some stupid car that doesn't work right for you. So the guitar is the same way. As I said before, when you're in front of people, you don't need that hassle. You've got other things to think about in your performance. Okay, so now we're going to bring this up to snuff again. We usually like to stretch them 2 times. Now every time they'll move a little bit. See, that one moved. That one didn't because it's pretty tight already. See how low that one was? And that's how much stretch came out of it. And we'll stretch it again at least 2 times. Be sure a lot of times I'll stretch them 3 times. Okay. Dropped again. Okay, now, before we put our fine edge tune on, now I want you to get close in here on this, on the bridge portion, on the saddle here. Focus in. Now, what the string does a lot of times when we put it on, it likes to come up and overshoot. We want a little niche in that string and go straight. That's 10-15% variation in your pitch. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our thumb and we're going to push down in front of each one of these, as you see me doing. And it puts a little dent in your finger. It's not a big deal, but it'll make a lot of difference in the pitch of that string. That variation will come into play as you begin to play. So we want to take it out now, early. Then when I put my fine edge tune and I spent the 10 or 15 minutes that it takes me to get that super edge that I want all the time, it's going to stay where I put it. Half of the time people tuning, they say, well, this stupid guitar won't come in tune. Well, there's all kinds of variations. The string is giving a little bit, the neck is giving a little bit, and so forth. And you have all these variations, and you say, well, why won't it come in tune? Now, in future situations, too, just for your knowledge at this point, if you're focused in really close, again, on this saddle, you'll see little niches in each one of these. I take a Dremel tool and set the intonation, as we call it. There's a separate film coming up of just the intonation of your guitar, how to tune it up, how to get this right. If your intonation is right, your guitar will just fall into tune. If it's wrong, you might have one chord that's beautifully in tune and go to the next chord and it's out of tune. Have you ever wondered what the problem was there? We could solve that totally. Again, we're looking for that guitar player's utopia. It does exist. What a neat thing to pick up your guitar. It's in tune, it sounds good, and oh wow, it's a tremendous thing to play. And so the sciences and the technology is here for you. That's why I'm sitting in front of you, to get you this technology. And it does exist if you're interested enough to take the time to figure it out. That's what this is all about, really. Okay, so now I'm ready to put the fine edge tune. And a future tape, will give us that. And I want to take plenty of time, to explain that category. See, now I'm not in good tune there. It's going to take a little bit to listen to that really close and get through. So that wraps up this segment. Hope you've enjoyed it. Now go back and listen to this as many times as you have to. If you need to, that's what these tapes are for, and that's the beauty of them. So hope to see you in a future film. Thanks a lot.